The first part of this anime begins by showing an old man named Kazuo Yamashita, who is meeting with his boss, Hide Kinogi. Kinogi purposely calls Kazuo to his office to tell him about a martial arts match called Kengan. Kinogi explains that Kengan is a fair martial arts battle that has been held since the ancient imperial era of Japan to resolve a conflict. In ancient times, traders who competed with other traders usually held Kengan matches to fight over territory or control the sale of certain commodities. In a Kengan fight, each merchant or company will hire a fighter to represent their company in a fair one-on-one duel without using weapons. Kinogi tells Kazuo that he will join Kengan's fight for power rights with another company. He introduced a young man named Ohma Tokita, who would later become a fighter representing his company in the Kengan fight. Kinogi orders Kazuo to care for all of Ohma's needs until the Kengan match starts. After getting back from work, at night, Kazuo is used to preparing dinner for his only son, who always locks himself in his room. He has been living that lonely life since his wife left him 10 years ago without a clear reason. The next day, Kazuo tries to come to Ohma's house in the middle of the forest in an old abandoned building. While at his house, two boxers from Russia named Lihito came with his friend Ivan to tell Ohma that Lihito would later become his opponent in the Kengan fight for a building project worth 100 billion yen. The next day, the Kengan fight between Ohma and Lihito began in an old building that had been abandoned in heavy rain conditions. Many elite corporate leaders came to watch the match because the value of the project at stake by the two companies was enormous. When the fight started, Ohma threw consecutive punches to Lihito's face and body until he was overwhelmed. However, as it turned out, he was deliberately hit by Ohma so that he could attack Ohma using the knife finger incision, which became his mainstay attack. After analyzing Lihito's attack and finding the weakness of his attack, Ohma approached him and grabbed his hand so that he couldn't make a slash attack at all. In the evening, Kinogi celebrates Ohma's victory by inviting him to dinner together with a variety of delicious meat dishes. His female secretary, Kaede, then asked Ohma why he participated in the Kengan match, which was known to be very dangerous and had a very high risk. Ohma casually replied that he participated in the Kengan fight to become the most powerful fighter respected by other fighters. But actually, the reason he participated in the Kengan match was to be able to meet someone who had killed his teacher named Nico. The next day, Ohma returns to a Kengan match with a stronger opponent named Jun Seikibayoshi, a fighter from Argentina. At first, Ohma had a hard time attacking Jun because his physical resistance was very strong, and he could also counter all of Ohma's attacks with a slam so hard that Ohma fell unconscious. The audience looked enthusiastic and kept cheering for Jun to end this match by defeating Ohma. But not long after, he woke up from his stupor and gave off a strong aura that confused Jun. With drastically increased agility and attack speed, he finally managed to defeat Jun and won the match. After the match ended, an old man named Mitsudo Katahara came to the center of the arena with his bodyguard. Mitsudo is the leader of the Kengan Fighting Association and also holds the Dainoppon Bank's governor position. Mitsudo had deliberately come to the fight to announce that the deadly Kengan tournament would be starting soon to determine who would be the new leader of the Kengan Fighting Association. Anyone who wants to be a candidate for the new leader must send their best fighter to fight against his representative fighter named Feng, the strongest fighter in the history of Kengan. The next day, Ohma looks annoyed at Kinogi for choosing another fighter to represent his company in the Kengan tournament, a tough guy named Sen Hatsumi. Kinogi deliberately chose Sen to represent his company because, so far, Sen has never lost in all the matches he participated in. To solve Ohma's problem, Kinogi suggests that Kazuo register as Ohma's employer so that he can participate in the Kengan tournament. Kazuo will pay 100 million yen to the official referee of the Kengan Association so that Ohma can participate in the verification match. Later, if Ohma can win the verification match, he will automatically be able to register in the deadly Kengan tournament. Hearing this, Ohma immediately accepted the offer, even though Kazuo had not given any answer to Kinogi. The next day, Ohma fights in an unofficial Kengan match to verify as a new member of the Kengan Association. His opponent in this match is Masayasu Yokota, a representative fighter from the food company Usblaki, while Ohma is registered as a representative fighter of the fictional company Yamashita, a subsidiary of the Kinogi Group company. After a very short fight, he can easily defeat Yokota with one very hard hit. That night, when Ohma was practicing fighting alone, he recalled his past when his teacher named Nico was killed by his fellow teacher named Setsuna Kiryu. Since Ohma discovered that the person who had killed his teacher was Kiryu, he is determined to defeat all the strongest fighters in the Kengan match, including Kiryu. The following night, Ohma, Kazuo, and Kaede came to the harbor dock with hundreds of the company's elite leaders and their fighters. Kazuo, who was taking part in the deadly Kengan tournament for the first time, looked awkward because he wasn't used to all of this. Not long after, Mitsudo's personal bodyguard announced to the elite company leaders and elite fighters who received an official invitation to immediately board the yacht. Meanwhile, company leaders and other fighters who did not receive an invitation were asked to board the Ship of Death, where the first round of the Kengan Tournament battles would be held. Inside the Ship of Death, the fighters would do their best on the lower deck while the company leaders would watch on the top floor. Before the match started, Ohma asked Kaede to bring some water, but when Kaede was about to leave the battle arena, the door suddenly closed. Kaede was stuck in the battle arena because she had spent too long chatting with Ohma, so she had no other choice but to wait on the edge of the arena until the match was over. The fighting committee then announced that the first round of the Kengan tournament would soon begin. In this round, the first, second, and third representative fighters from various companies would compete for the 5 slots still available for the next round. When the match starts, Ohma must fight against several fighters while protecting Kaede from other fighters. Fortunately, Lihito, who also participated in the Kengan tournament, came to help Ohma and formed an alliance with him so they could pass to the next round more easily. After hours of fierce fighting, the 5 fighters who finally qualified for the next round were Lihito, Ohma, Keizabu Sawada, Yoshinari Karo, and Hazard. After the first round of battle ended, they boarded the yacht and were greeted by Mitsudo and his personal bodyguard. However, Hazard is eliminated outright for rebelling and attacking Mitsudo's personal bodyguard. After that, Mitsudo announced to all invited guests that the second round of the Kengan tournament would be held in the next 27 hours so that the fighters were allowed to rest before the fight took place. He also announced to the company leaders to re-register the recording representative fighters before the tournament started. Moments after the announcement, several fighters experienced attacks from other fighters because they wanted to seize the position of fighters who had escaped through the invitation route. In that random attack, the fighter named Ryo Himuro was attacked by the fighter named Suekichi. Inoue Machizo was attacked by the crazy fighter named Meguro Masaki, and Takemoto was attacked by Nikaido Ren. All the attackers managed to seize the positions of the 3 fighters. However, something different happened to Imae Cosmo and Wakatsuki Takeshi. Although they were both attacked by rebel fighters named Akufu Kyusio and Kufra, they managed to defend themselves and defeat the 2 rebels. And it turns out that all of the rebel fighters' attacks were masterminded by a power company leader named Katsumasa Hayami, who intended to bring down Mitsudo Katahara. Meanwhile, Lihito's female manager, Kanade, was seen scolding Lihito and Ohma because they were hanging around the casino when there were a lot of random attacks. Not long after, the thing that she was afraid of happened where there was a small fighter who suddenly attacked Ohma. Still, when Ohma realized the fighter was a woman, he immediately stopped his attack and asked why she had attacked him. Her name, Karakure, loudly said that she liked Ohma and wanted to make him her husband so that they could have children together. Hearing the sudden proposal, Ohma ran away because he did not know how to respond to the proposal. Not long after he left, Karara's 2 older brothers, Reiichi Kure and Holly's Kure, came to pick her up. The Kure family is the most famous assassin family and is feared by many other clans because of their power and dark aura. After that, Karara approached her grandfather, Ario Kure, saying that she had fallen in love with an old man named Ohma Tokita and wanted to marry him. Hearing this, he immediately asked her to go enjoy the party before he finally vented his anger by smashing the floor because Ohma had dared to approach his beloved granddaughter. Ario then orders Karara's other brothers to keep an eye on Ohma and, if necessary, remove him from the fight. The next day after the cruise ship arrived at a private island owned by Mitsudo, company leaders and fighters were invited to stay at a luxury hotel that he had prepared before. In the evening, when the second round of the Kengan tournament was about to start, Kazuo looked nervous about attending the lottery to determine the opponents of the contestants. At the meeting, he met with 2 other company leaders, Oyaken and Katsumasa. When Kazuo was still awkward with the situation, a Yoshitake real estate company leader named Yoshiro approached Kazuo and Lihito to insult Lihito. He almost got beat up by Lihito, but because the lottery had started, Yoshiro managed to escape. The event opened with remarks from Mitsudo and Kinogi as promoters who accommodated this event. Kazuo looked surprised because Kinogi looked serious during the event. Still, after he found out that Kinogi was risking his company in this tournament, he became nervous because if the Kinogi group went bankrupt, he would automatically go bankrupt. Mitsudo then announced that in this tournament, all participants would be divided into 4 different standings from standings A to standings D. He warned company leaders to avoid his strongest fighter named Kano Agito, who is in standings D. The draw process will be carried out using a number machine where the person who gets the highest number gets a turn to choose the faster block. Sadly, Kazuo had bad luck during the drawing process because Ohma would be paired with Kano Agito in the 4th match. After that, other company leaders began to choose their respective slots based on the number of numbers they got. After the draw to determine the opponent of each fighter was finished, Kazuo hoped that Ohma wouldn't mind the standings he got. That night, the deadly Kengan match tournament was finally held at a large stadium on the island. In addition to elite executives from well-known companies, many officials, media journalists, and world leaders also enlivened the event to witness the Kengan performance. The first match was a one-on-one duel between Imai Cosmo, who was known as a delinquent fighter who had defeated Yakuza fighters, and a large fighter named Adam Dudley. Before the match, Cosmo's company boss named Nishishanji asked him not to push himself too much in the match later, but Cosmo looked calm and confidently said he would win the match. After both fighters were ready, Mitsudo's daughter, Sayaka Katahara, stated that the match would soon begin. Ronald Haraguchi, the boss of Adam Dudley's company, seemed to underestimate Cosmo because of Cosmo's small body, so he asked Adam to finish the match quickly. The battle between them was fierce, with Cosmo starting his initial attack with various punches and kicks. Cosmo seems superior to Adam because he is used to fighting against bigger enemies and has a mainstay attack in the form of scissor claws. However, all of Cosmo's punches still haven't been able to paralyze Adam, who has much greater physical strength than him. When Adam counterattacked with a light punch, Cosmo suddenly dodged the attack, so the audience looked surprised at his reaction. However, one of the fighters named Ren said that Cosmo's response was correct because Adam's punch was able to make Cosmo seriously injured. After Adam got back up, Cosmo again prepared to fight against him with a stronger attack, but unfortunately, Adam managed to counter all the attacks and threw him very hard. But in the end, Cosmo managed to win the match by locking Adam's neck so that he didn't realize that Cosmo had attacked him first. One of the fighters seems amazed by Cosmo's technique known as the zoning technique, which is very difficult for other fighters to master. As a result of Cosmo's victory, Ronald, the boss of Adam's company, was forced to withdraw from the match and give the losing money to Nishishanji. While everyone was cheering for Cosmo's victory, Nishishanji even looked angry because he just realized that this match could hurt Cosmo that badly. The next participant in the Kengan match is a fighter named Kono Haruo, who comes from the strongest tribe in the Himalayas. Haruo was adopted by a video game company leader named Akio Kono, who is specially trained to participate in the Kengan tournament. However, when Haruo moved from the Himalayas to Japan, he became addicted to video games and became a big fat man. Meanwhile, the fighter who will be his opponent in this match represents Wakasa Insurance Company, Akoya Shasi. When the match started, Haruo immediately issued the first attack, but Akoya managed to dodge all of them thanks to a signal from a battle analyst girl named Hiyama. Soon after, Haruo unleashed multiple attacks in succession, causing Akoya to slam hard against the walls of the battle arena. While Akoya continued to carry out defensive strategies, Haruo continued to attack him with various punches and bear-killing techniques. Fortunately, Akoya managed to repel the attack again and issued a counterattack that was able to break Haruo's skull. During the fight, Akoya briefly recalled the memories of the past when he was still a police officer, where he often judged big-name criminals by breaking them. After he meets Hiyama, he finally decides to become a Kengan fighter to vent his frustration. After a very fierce battle between Akoya and Haruo, he finally made Haruo fall with a very hard kick. Just as the referee announced Akoya as the match winner, Haruo suddenly got up and gave off a very dark, killing aura. This made Hiyama panic and asked Akoya to defend himself properly again so she could devise a new attack strategy. Unfortunately, Akoya, unable to withstand Haruo's attack, he ended this match with a high kick so hard that Haruo fell unconscious for the second time. Akoya was declared the winner of the match, and Haruo had to re-examine his defeat in the match. After the fight, Hiyama immediately approached Akoya and apologized for failing to analyze the fight faster. An angry Akoya immediately slapped her, but after seeing her pitiful face, he forgave her while wiping the wound on her face. This is the end of part 1 of the anime. The next part will be in the next video.